Hi, I'm Stephanie Hertz, Marketing Director at Ward Forest Retirement Community, CNU's premier sponsor for the Lifelong Learning Society. Today it's my pleasure to introduce speakers Amanda Gada and Melissa Tilman. Amanda Gada is the Memory Care Navigator with the Riverside Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health in Williamsburg, Virginia. She's an undergraduate of Mary Washington College and then obtained her master's degree in social work from Virginia Commonwealth University. She has previously worked in a continuing care retirement community, acute care, home health care and hospice, and in outpatient settings. She has previously served as a board member for the Hospice House and Support Care of Williamsburg. Her career concentration continues to be medical social work in her current role as Memory Care Navigator. She assists patients, families, and caregivers in their individual journey with dementia, utilizing a person-centered and positive approach to care model. Amanda lives in Williamsburg with her husband and 3 children and enjoys outdoor activities, family beach vacations, and spending time in Colonial Williamsburg. Melissa Tilman is the office manager for Riverside Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health in Williamsburg, Virginia. She completed her undergraduate studies at Virginia Commonwealth University and earned her LPN from Riverside College of Health Careers. She is a 2021 graduate of the Riverside Emerging Leaders Academy. Early in her career with Riverside, Melissa worked in assisted living, skilled, memory, and long-term care. While working for Riverside Neurology Specialist, Melissa gained much of her knowledge of the challenges that families face while navigating a dementia diagnosis. As a key part of the memory care clinic team, she played an active role in assisting with the diagnostic assessments and helping families find resources for their journey. At SEAL, Melissa participates in an interdisciplinary team of the geriatric assessment clinic, provides support for the driver evaluation program and memory care navigation, as well as with numerous dementia-related research and community outreach projects. Melissa's experiences in the clinical setting inspire her commitment to patient-centered care. Melissa lives in Newport News with her family, where she loves to work in her garden, listen to music, and pursue her creative interest. Today, Amanda and Melissa will be talking about the Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health and taking the mystery out of identifying resources for aging well.
Hello, this is Amanda. I will be taking the first part of our PowerPoint presentation. Next slide, please. So when you think about aging well today, I kind of want to start out with what are the current trends? What are some challenges associated with these, with folks living longer? Realities of aging, the cost of aging, different levels of care if you require care at any point in aging, and then also thinking about and considering the different things that you might need to age in place. Next slide. Current trends in aging. Basically, the 2020, the Bureau of Labor Statistics supported that 10.6 million people 65 or older are still employed. And you can see the other statistics breaking down the different age categories. In doing the research, there's a lot of research around the pandemic. Why around the pandemic? Inflation has caused delayed retirement, concerns about inflation. Also, in doing some of the research, we found that delaying retirement 1 year can increase a retirement income by 7.75%. And that with folks living longer, folks want to retire later so they have that additional income kind of as a security deposit per se. Living longer, also more desire to stay in the workforce. So people want to stay in the workforce longer, be more productive. 10,000 people are turning 65 every day. So we do have longer lifespans now, more so than we ever did before. Next slide. All right. Oh. So here you see on this graph that folks, but the projections are showing that 80 plus population is expected more than to double from 15 million in 2020 to 30 to 35 million by 2050. So when I talked about retirement age a little later, some are having inadequate income to match their needs. So if they have needs for a higher level of care or can't live independently anymore and need care, sometimes their income, Social Security, retirement, what have you, is not going to match what their need is for that care. Some of the challenges with living longer is increased need for assistance with activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, ambulation, that sort of thing. And with folks living longer, there's a increase in the chronic medical conditions that could develop with living longer. Next slide, please. All right, so let's look at some of the realities and considerations in talking about living longer and also maybe trying to age in place. Next slide, please. All right. So the realities of aging, we have found that 3 out of 4 people, so 75% of aging, they want to age at home. They want to stay in their home and age in place. And the average time needed for long-term care, whether that means assisted living, whether that means care in their home, whether it means long-term care, whether it means memory care, is 3 years. But lots and lots of folks are going to need more years of care. All right, so 3 out of 4 people want to age at home. 7 out of 10 at some point, age 65 plus, at some point will need some form of long-term care, whether that be care in the home or, like I said, another level of care. And we're going to talk about some of the different levels of care and what are involved in those levels of care in just a minute. Okay. So from the 2021 Genworth Cost of Care Survey, these are averages across the nation of what it is going to cost per year for different levels of care. So you can see here with assisted living, $63,000 is the average nationally. In some areas of our country, in some areas of Virginia, that will fluctuate depending on what's available in that particular community. 109 for a private room long-term care nursing. And the average is 59 for a home health aide, for somebody to come into your home and be able to help you with as much as you need in your home. And that can vary on the hours that you would need depending on what, how much help you need. Next slide. So the different levels of care, the first 2 are actually usually are covered by your insurance, so Medicare and whatever kind of supplement you may have. Skilled nursing care and rehab are really meant to be short-term. You're at a facility, it is to rehab in the hopes that you are going to return home post-acute care. So after a hospital stay or surgery, you might need that short-term rehab stay. With home health care, that is also going to be Medicare certified, covered by insurance, hopefully covered by your supplement. and physician referred for a skilled need. So a skilled need would be that you need nursing care in your home. You need physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy. This again is very short term. Once the skill is no longer needed, if you continue to need help in the home, then you would need to look into private duty. So the next two are going to be more private duty out of, you're paying out of pocket or long-term care insurance or whatever resources you may have. Companion homemaker services are going to help you with things around the house. So the help with the meal prep, laundry, transportation to doctor's appointments, or running errands. Home health aid is going to be personal care services. So folks that are helping you with activities of daily living, different personal care needs that you might have depending on how much assistance you need in the home. Next slide. All right, so different levels of care, facility-based, could be adult day respite services. So these would be programs that are in the community where a loved one goes and has day programming activities. So meals, activities, other services can be included in that or added on to it. Different adult day service programs here on the peninsula. We have Warwick Forest has an adult day respite program, as well as what used to be referred to as PACE is now InnovAge. They also have an adult day service program as well. In the Williamsburg area, we have Williamsburg Landing has an adult day respite program, as well as the United Methodist Church, Williamsburg United Methodist Church on Jamestown Road. Some are full day programs, some are half day programs, and they vary on the amount of days that you would go. Some folks choose to only go a couple days a week, other folks maybe all 5 days a week. Assisted living is going to be multiple levels of care to support your activities of daily living. So if you require some assistance with your activities of daily living, but don't require in all facets, assisted living might be a level of care that you may need at some point. Memory care is going to be either licensed at an assisted living level or even as a long-term care nursing, but a secure unit where it focuses on specialized memory programming to help serve individuals that might be living with dementia or some kind of memory loss. And then finally, nursing care, long-term nursing care would be 2 or more limitations on your daily activities of daily living, and you are needing more care than an assisted living facility would be able to provide. Next slide. So let's talk about some of the considerations for aging in place. Thinking ahead, if 3 out of 4 folks in those studies want to age at home, what would it take? What are the different things that you might need to consider in order to stay at home? It could be some care assistance in the home for you or your loved ones. It could be transportation services if you retire from driving at some point. Home modifications, thinking about entry ramps to the home, bathroom modifications, staircase railings, different specialized things that would help keep you successful and independent at home. Meal delivery, thinking about Meals on Wheels. What other services in the community could you benefit from if you're not able to independently cook or prepare meals anymore? Caregiver support programs. So if you are aging in place and you have a family caregiver, what kind of support groups or support could they have to stay successful in order to help you stay successful in aging in place? Caregiver support is a really important thing that we'll be talking a little bit about later. And finally, abuse and financial fraud prevention, making sure that you are protecting you and your loved ones from scams, any other sort of financial fraud. It's unfortunate, but it is out there, as more folks are doing online banking transactions, and other things, and even just spam phone calls that you might pick up the phone and you think it's a legitimate business, but they're asking for some financial information from you or your loved one. Next slide, please. I am going to now have Melissa. She is going to talk to you a little bit about wellness. What does it mean to you, and some aspects of wellness?
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate that. So we'll talk a little bit about wellness. What does wellness mean to you? That term means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And the answer to that is really personal. And we try to respect and honor that. What our work is, we want to make sure that we're helping our patients and families reach their goals and what wellness truly means to them. That being said, there's some general aspects of healthy aging that do apply to most people. We'll go into these a little bit more in depth, but generally speaking, wellness is a combination of your physical, financial, social, cognitive, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. So diving into that a little bit more, physical health, there's a strong correlation between individuals that are physically healthy, exercise regularly, that they live longer and better quality lives. This helps prevent what we refer to as comorbidities. It helps you retain more of your muscle mass. It helps deter your chances of developing chronic illness if you are more physically healthy. A healthy diet, in particular the DASH diet, reduces your chances of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and hypertension. And of course, we well know the ramifications of smoking and advocate for smoking cessation to reduce those other risks for cancer, heart attack, and your cognitive and brain health is really important as well. If it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. It's important to keep your brain health, both in your physical body as far as your hypertension and diabetes, but also cognitively, that you're doing things that are challenging for your brain, whether that looks like word puzzles or crossword or Sudoku, that you're getting enough sleep, good quality sleep, the importance of having a sleep study and evaluation if you're having problems sleeping cannot be overstated. And it's really important to, again, follow a good diet to keep your brain healthy. And here I'll talk a little bit about what is normal aging. That's probably one of the most common questions we get is this normal? Of course, there's a broad spectrum for what normal is. But generally speaking, these are some of the things we would identify as normal, and I'll tell you what their counterpart not normal would be. So if you've always had a historical pattern of being really active socially or having activities that you're really interested in, but all of a sudden or gradually over time, you realize that yourself or your loved one is not as engaged in these activities. That's something that could be cause for concern. We all, from time to time, have difficulty matching somebody's name with their face, or sometimes you can't quite think of that word that's on the tip of your tongue. That is normal aging. But if you're in a conversation, you completely lose track of it, or if, let's say, somebody changes the subject and you're not able to follow along with that conversation, that's probably when it's time to start talking with your doctor about having an evaluation. We all forget what day it is sometimes. That is normal aging. If you're able to keep yourself organized by using a watch, calendar, or your cell phone, that's normal aging. But if you find that yourself or your loved one has gotten lost what time of day it is, whether if they can't differentiate that it's the morning or the evening, or they can't differentiate or they get confused about what the season is, or even where they are in their life in regards to this stage of life, that's cause for concern. You know, if you occasionally missed a payment, none of us would advocate for that or advise that, but it's normal if that happens from time to time. But if your loved one starts making uncharacteristic choices with their finances, missing a lot of payments, missing their medications, they're spending their investments in a way that is not beneficial to them, it's probably time to have a conversation with the physician. Again, it's normal if you make minor mistakes, if you're using tools or equipment, or you occasionally forget to turn. What's important to recognize here is that you can say to yourself, oh, I forgot to turn that off. What's more concerning and what we would consider not normal is that if someone is making mistakes using equipment that's very familiar to them. For an example, if they said something was wrong with the stove, but really the reality is it's the individual is not able to operate the stove any longer, or they don't seem to realize the risk that they have by leaving the stove on. That is cause for concern. We would consider that not. Everybody loses things from time to time, misplace things, get absent-minded and set something down and forget. That is completely normal. What is or not normal aging is when you're suddenly putting things where you've never put them. If you start putting your shoes in the refrigerator instead of the closet, that's cause for concern. Especially if they don't recall putting the item there, or they may also have a tendency to paranoia or disbelief that they didn't do that, somebody else must have done that. That's considered not normal. You know, sometimes we all are very busy and maybe you get absent-minded and you've been driving for a while and you realize, oh, you drove right by your exit. If that happens sometimes, you know, maybe it should serve as a reminder that we need to pay closer attention, or maybe take a little bit of a break and not try to multitask so much. But we all do those kinds of things. What's concerning is when you get lost traveling to and from a place you know how to get to, or you're not able to find your way home. The reason that we advocate for having these kinds of conversations very early with your physician is because some of these things that we've just reviewed can be caused by things that are reversible. It may not even be a true memory loss or dementia. It could be metabolic, your diabetes, or you could have developed diabetes and not be aware. Your thyroid could be underfunctioning. There are reversible causes for these types of things. So it's really important to speak with your physician or your loved one's physician if you have observed any of these kinds of things. Just briefly want to touch on the different types of dementia. Dementia is an umbrella term. Underneath of that larger term of dementia is the specific types. There's over 100 different types of dementia. The most familiar one to most of us is the Alzheimer's disease, but there are other types of dementias, and they do present a little bit differently. That's why it's really important that if you have concerns for your loved one, that you bring those up with their physician, just to make sure that they get an accurate diagnosis, because that can impact the treatment from that point, whether that be medications or different therapies that may be used. Next, we'll talk briefly about the emotional and mental health. It's really important. On the heels of the pandemic, I think we all can appreciate how significant this has been for everyone, that we take care of ourselves emotionally and mentally. It's important that you ask for help if you need it from your support system, and that you maintain those connections with your friends and family. If you find that you have a lot of time on your hands, that's a good opportunity to look for new things that are interesting to you. Or maybe you always wanted to try, but you had to work, or you had young children to take care of. Now's the time. Take up a new hobby. And it's really important also to keep in mind, even as a retiree or an older adult, the value you can impart to younger people. And I would really encourage you to look for opportunities to volunteer. We have a volunteer at our center who is just an absolute delight. She came through our geriatric assessment clinic with her husband. He was diagnosed with dementia, and he later passed away from his disease process. But it's so motivated our volunteer to give back and to help families that are going through the exact same thing she and her family went through. And we really value that. I can also think of an example with my my grandfather, who after my grandmother passed away from cancer, that he was a driver for the American Cancer Society and took people to their cancer treatments that did not have anybody else to take them to therapy. And it was a very rewarding thing for him. It's really important to maintain what we call the sense of purpose. This is really, as a human being, the thing that makes you tick. What is interesting to you? What is your gift that you can give to those around you? It gives you the sense of autonomy and empowerment. When things get really hard physically, or you're facing a physical challenge, this sense of purpose is what really helps people get through these crises, because they have the will to live, the will to fight, the will to continue. So it's really important that you identify what those things are to you. Where you can make your impact, whether that's, like I was talking about, volunteering or your hobbies, being active in your church or your community, your role in the family, if you're the matriarch or patriarch, the impact that grandparents can make on grandchildren is immeasurable. So just really take stock of what those things are and what your contributions are. They're really important into who you are as a person. Again, we talk about social and community health. It's important to maintain interaction with other people. This keeps your conversation skills sharp. It helps you not be isolated, which is really detrimental. We all felt that way during COVID, I think. If you're having changes with your hearing and vision ability, you may feel the need to not be as socially engaged as you once were. You may feel embarrassed or worried that people may notice things. But I would encourage you to not let that override your social interactions, because loneliness is really, really a detriment to us as humans. It makes you more susceptible to certain diseases, and absolutely impacts your cognition. It's more likely to cause you to develop depression and other things like that. So this active participation in your hobbies and activities and social engagement is absolutely critical. It's important that you find something that resonates with you spiritually, or if that looks like an organized religion with the church family, or a more personalized approach. It's just really important that you spend some time thinking about these things. It's a very individual journey, but when we start looking in the context of end of life, it's important for peace and purpose that you have spent some time on these things. It helps us develop our coping mechanism. It also helps us not have the anger and fear that can come sometimes as we look at death and end of life, but to also have the acceptance and gratitude of the life you have lived. We encourage prayer or meditation, whatever that looks like for you. And that, again, you have that engagement with purposeful activities. It's also important that you be aware of your financial health, that you plan your assets to help support you throughout your lifespan. If you have a long-term care insurance, that you activate it and use it. Make sure you're looking at your plans and have a good idea of what you are eligible for. If you're a veteran, that you're getting those resources that are rightfully yours. Maybe you have, it's uncommon now, but if you have a retirement plan through your employer, what assets do you have through that? It's really important to plan your monthly budget and your expenses so that you can be financially sound for the length of your life. And also, again, we just want to reiterate to be mindful of potential online scams. We are very clever these days and try to take very opportunistic with our older adults. So we really caution to just be aware of those kinds of things, even if it looks like it's under the disguise of a recognized institution or bank that you trust. It's just really important to double check and never give out your personal information unless you have initiated the contact or you're very confident that this contact is coming from the bank. Another thing that's really important to consider long before you get to the point that you need this is your advanced directives and legal documentation. Please encourage you not to wait until the crisis moment to start thinking about these things. Because the earlier that you plan for these types of decisions, the more likely it is that what your wishes are will be honored and executed. Your family may want to honor your wishes, but not have a good understanding of what they are. So it's really important that you have at least 2 healthcare and legal and financial power of attorneys, and whatever that looks like, whether it's a spouse, an adult child, or a friend you trust, that you update and review these documents on a regular basis. You want to make sure your family knows what your wishes are long before they would ever be in a situation, because none of us think clearly or at our best when we're actually in the throes of a crisis. So it's important to identify these things long before you need them. Next, I'll pass it back to my colleague Amanda, and she'll talk with us some about the role of caregivers.
Okay, so with caregiving, this is speaking to the unpaid caregivers. And I am sure that everyone in the audience at some point or another has been a caregiver or has been a care receiver. So I wanted to open this up with, before we kind of look at some trends of caregiving, a quote from Rosalind Carter for her Institute for Caregivers. And if you ever have the opportunity to visit our center, this quote is on one of our walls in one of our family areas, right outside of our resource room. There are 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, and those who will be caregivers, those who will need a caregiver. So, and that I think can resonate with all of us. All of us have either cared for children or nieces or nephews or aging parents or siblings, spouses. So the list goes on and on. Let's talk about caregiving in our Commonwealth of Virginia here for a minute or two. Currently, we have 8 million residents in Virginia, and that statistic I think was updated in 2019. And 1.04 million are family unpaid caregivers. So 1 out of 8 of us is actively a caregiver in some aspect of their family. That annual value is $11.2 billion. So that equates to $12.81 an hour for an unpaid caregiver. When you look at that annual value and you think about the different levels of care that I discussed earlier, the reason that levels of care continue to have a rising cost is supply versus demand. When you really look at, if we have an increase in an aging population that is living longer, there's more of a demand for these different levels of care at some point. And our family caregivers, our unpaid family caregivers, are saving the health system infrastructure and some of these different levels of care billions of dollars, really. So that's a very startling kind of sort of statistic. I also want to speak a second to the sandwich generation of caregivers. So I think we've all probably experienced this at one time or another as well. But this refers to middle-aged adults, or, adults maybe approaching even retirement now that people are living longer, or maybe have retired, who are simultaneously raising their children and actually supporting aging parents or supporting their grandchildren. So I think, all of us can probably identify, if not personally, we can identify someone that we've known that has been in this sandwich generation. And this gets increasingly tricky for sandwich generation, because while caregiving stress, caregiving burden is a real, a real issue, it is critical to seek caregiver support. So if you find yourself as a caregiver, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you're accepting help. I have found time and time again in working with individuals and their families that when people reach out and say, I want to help you, they mean it. Try not to take it all on yourself. When you're in the role of a parent or a grandparent, you have responsibilities with your career, and you're trying to meet the needs of the caregiving, that you can really feel very overwhelmed very quickly. Next slide, please. So why Riverside is here to meet individuals and their caregivers with programs that can better meet their needs. Our mission statement is to care for others as we would care for those we love. And we want to enhance their well-being and improve their health. And also the Riverside Care Difference is the way in which we deliver care and services as a team by putting our customer at the heart of all we do. And when your customer, it's the individual that is needing some sort of our health service, and also their caregivers, continually addressing their expectations. We want to keep you safe. We want to be kind to you and your caregiver. We want to heal you and help support your caregiver. And we also want to respect your wishes. Next slide. So some of the different Riverside Health System services for lifelong health. The very first one you'll see on the slide is our Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health. And that is a mouthful, and that's why we call ourselves SEAL. We're just a little acronym there. Also, Riverside Wellness and Fitness Centers. They have programs to meet the needs of no matter where you are, age, fitness levels, and that sort of thing. Riverside Lifelong Health includes some of our continuing care retirement communities. Warwick Forest being down here in the Denby area of Newport News, and Patriots Colony being up in the Williamsburg area on Outer Route 5. Also, skilled rehabilitation and long-term care. We do have facilities for both of those. So we spoke earlier about the skilled rehab and then also about the long-term care if an individual had a need for that. We also finally have a program called Riverside Choose Home. Choose Home is a program that is geared to help assist folks to age in place. And you have personal coordinators that help make arrangements for you to receive your therapy in your home, or transportation to the doctors, or if you need personal care or companion care in your home, help you can help identify those resources for you. So I am going to turn it over to Melissa now, who is going to talk a little bit more about the services at SEAL, and then we are going to be participating interchangeably.
So at the Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health, we operate 2 clinics within our center. The Geriatric Assessment Clinic, which is where we do a comprehensive review of older adults. We have the Jane D. McKinney Driver Rehabilitation Program, the Memory Care Navigation Program, which Amanda is our Memory Care Navigator. We have a resource library. We offer individual and caregiver support, as well as a learning series. So our geriatric assessment clinic includes a geriatrician or nurse practitioner. We have a registered nurse. Pharmacists can help us with comprehensive medication review. Our clinic coordinator offers caregiver support, and Amanda chimes in with people who need ongoing support or families that really need support throughout their journey. The Jane D. McKinney Driver Rehabilitation Program offers a clinical and behind the wheel assessment for drivers. Our goal is not to take away someone's driver's license. Everyone that comes in for an assessment is concerned because our driver's license is a big impact on our ability to be independent. So our certified driving rehab specialist will do an assessment. There's 3 possible outcomes. Generally speaking, would be there's no concerns identified, or that maybe someone is able to continue to drive, but they need adaptive equipment following a stroke that's left them with some weakness, or maybe they have some cognitive concerns, but they're okay to drive a few miles from home as long as they stay in a safe, familiar area. Sometimes we do get to the point where someone is no longer safe to drive, and they are recommended to retire. But we do also try to help support them with transportation arrangements as possible. We can offer adaptive driver assessments, which is for individuals, like I indicated, that maybe have had a stroke or other, perhaps an amputation, other impairment physically. Different equipment can be placed on their vehicle to modify it and allow them to continue driving. I'll pass it to Amanda to go over the memory care navigation.
Okay, so memory care navigation program basically is a specialized, individualized service that provides individuals living with some sort of memory loss or dementia and their caregivers ongoing support and resources. It is individualized because everybody's journey is going to be different. So what one person may need as far as caregiver support or different resources is going to be entirely different in another household. But basically, just really a person to be able to listen. With memory loss, it's frustrating. It's overwhelming for both an individual and their caregiver at times. Unfortunately, we don't have a cure for memory loss. I know, I've spoken with individuals that say, I love if I could just have my memory back. And we all wish that we had that magic wand. But unfortunately, we don't have cures for some of these diseases that are causing memory loss and dementia. But really being able to just be there, listen, respond to needs, any questions and concerns. When a new situation may arise or there's a new need for assistance, being a point of contact and an ongoing point of contact for that individual and family to say, this is what we're looking for. Can you help us? Somebody that you can always pick up the phone and call. Obviously, if folks need different resources around educational opportunities, whether it's caregiver support, webinars, anything, articles that they may want to read if there's a particular situation that is difficult to understand. Coordinating referrals with local and regional agencies and programs, hoping to get, more assistance, just another layer of support where we can get as many resources in to help the individual living with dementia and their family. And just a support. So, and a lot of caregiver support, hopefully helping folks find counseling resources, caregiving support groups. We have what's also called Memory Care Cafe, as it's a support group for the dyad. It's at the Tab Library, the third Wednesday of each month. So a lot of folks or couples or family members and their individual living with dementia are both able to participate. And it's a very flexible, casual, come and go sort of group that really, makes connections. And then they have those connections with caregivers as well and individuals. So speak for a second just about our resource room. So at our Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health, we have a resource room, and it is flyers and brochures and booklets, but basically a lot of contact information for different community services and other written resources to help individuals and their family members, regardless of what their diagnosis is. It does not have to be memory loss. It doesn't have to be a dementia. It might be somebody seeking a higher level of care and they just don't know what's out there in the community.
Yes, absolutely. Our resource room has information about transportation, driving concerns, veterans. There's just a wealth of information there for community services. And also this fall, we will have our lifelong learning series presented virtually. Our topics this year will include continence and wound care. We have a dietitian who will speak with us about healthy diet choices. We have a pharmacist that will be doing a presentation about polypharmacy and some of the concerns specifically for older adults and the geriatric population. Our certified driving rehab specialist will be doing a presentation on what that process entails as well. You can check our website at Riverside Online/seal. Later this year, we will have information for how to register for those learning series events. They are all free of cost. Please join them if you're interested in those topics.
So we wanted to include some of the frequent and go-to community resources. These are resources that we at the Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health find us referring individuals and their caregivers to most frequently. So let me just speak to them for a second, just to create awareness of what might be out there that might be able to help you. Peninsula Agency on Aging, they have an office in Newport News and Williamsburg. They serve the entire peninsula. If you happen to be in Gloucester or the Middle Peninsula, they actually also have Bay Agency on Aging. So every locality is going to have an agency on aging that can help with care coordination. They have tons of information about different resources that are in the community. Meals on Wheels is operated through your local agency on aging. Alzheimer's Association, that's we refer a lot. They do an awful lot of online educational opportunities, caregiver support groups in all different areas of the peninsula and the Middle Peninsula on a monthly basis. Department of Social Services. Sometimes individuals and families that we're serving need more support as far as maybe obtaining Medicaid, like the question that we had earlier, to help with that appropriate level of care for their loved one. Or it could be that they just need a more adult services support. And we identify that and we make sure that they get connected to those resources. Adult day programs and respite programs, like I spoke to earlier. Veterans Administration is a big one. We have folks that have all different levels of benefits through the Veterans Association. So lots of times it is connecting them to the Veterans Administration to see, do I have caregiver benefits? What type of benefits does my loved one have so I can get them the appropriate level of care? AARP, they do a lot of educational opportunities and some other things. And also, like Melissa mentioned before, getting them connected with transportation services. So unfortunately, if they have to retire from driving and it's not, it is the time, getting them connected with transportation services to help them stay engaged with doctor's appointments and community outings and other things that they would still like to participate in.
Here is our contact information for the Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health. We are located in the Fall Circle in Williamsburg. Their website there. Please feel free to give us a phone call there at the main number.
A few online questions here. Where is the driving assessment done and at what cost?
That is an excellent question. The driving assessment is done at our office in Williamsburg. We do have a satellite location in Hampton on Enterprise Parkway. This evaluation is not covered by insurance and it starts at $350. We do frequently have grant funding from the state of Virginia that allows us to reduce that considerably for older adults. That would bring it down to about $75 for the assessment. We do also offer a sliding scale based on income because we realize that is cost prohibitive for a lot of people. It is a process. Generally speaking, someone is referred to us by their physician, although a family member can. Very rarely we have the individual themselves that'll say that they want to have the assessment. And we go from there.
And a few people have asked us to share the information about the lecture series. So I can get that from you after.
Absolutely. I not have any printed documentation with me, but I will absolutely share that. It's we did it last year. The first year we did it last fall and it's a big success. So we're continuing it. It'll probably start in August or September. But I will absolutely share that information once it's available. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope this is helpful for you. If you think of any questions after our session's concluded today, please reach out to us. Amanda and I would be happy to help with questions you may have. And if you feel that you need a geriatric assessment or a driving assessment, of course, we'd be happy to help you at the center as well. Thank you so much.